Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Roland Garros Day 6 catch-up,
Djokovic down by Fonseca as quest for Slam 25 goes on.
Swiatek and Andreeva breeze through.
And Hodar prevails in five to reach the fourth round of a Slam for the first time.
Kim, today is the 29th of May, and we are here to catch up on Roland Garros Day 6 at Tennis Weekly HQ. On today's episode, the shocks just keep on coming in the men's draw. Jannik Sinner out yesterday. Novak Djokovic out today. He was undone by Joao Fonseca in a thrilling 5-set match. The quest for Grand Slam 25 continues. We'll be unpacking the match. We'll be unpacking what this means for Novak Djokovic, what this means for Joao Fonseca as well. We also had young sensations, Rafael Hodar and Jakub Mensik win through. And on the women's side, Iga Swiatek and Mira Andreeva in slightly more comfortable fashion easing through as well. There have been some big talking points at Roland Garros. We've had calls for more on-court player safety as bad falls continue at the tournament. Nasty fall by Son Mez in the doubles today. We're going to be talking about that. And there have been also some sexist remarks from Adolfo Vallejo that the French Open are not happy about. We're going to be talking about that as well in the first half. We're going to be looking forward to day 7, Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka in action. Another men's match actually opening up on Chatrier. So, Kim, it is a crazy tournament. Lots of weird, wonderful things are happening. And we just can't we can't exchange pleasantries because we need to just get straight into it once again, because the news is seismic. After Jannik Sinner's lost yesterday, Novak Djokovic is also suffered the same fate to Joao Fonseca.
I genuinely did not see this coming. I thought Djokovic would be winning
two
quite
sets
comfortably.
Up.
Yeah, the very nature of how Fonseca came and won this one from 2 sets down. This has only happened once before in Djokovic's career, and that was to Jurgen Meltzer, I think, in 2010, also at Roland Garros. So this does not happen very often.
I messaged that stat on our little group, and you very quickly replied that you remember that match well.
I was watching it, yeah.
That's such a Rafael Nadal fan thing to say, taking pleasure out of your opponent's defeats.
I was probably delighted at the time. It's probably a big relief, because I think that was the year Söderling got to the final and lost to Rafa, 2010. But I mean, one player I was thinking about actually is Carlos Alcaraz. He's probably thinking, I haven't actually missed out on very much, because, his two biggest rivals, I suppose, haven't got further than the third round. So it's kind of good if you're Alcaraz and injuries forced you out, because you probably don't feel like you're losing so much ground. But yeah, I mean, two of the biggest names out in 2 consecutive days in the same fashion, scoreline wise. And it's just bizarre. But I mean, Fonseca, is this the moment that he has finally arrived, coming down from 2 sets against the greatest tennis player of all time, arguably, someone who is on that quest for Slam 25, and Fonseca, who, up and coming player, but definitely hasn't recorded a big win like this in a Slam yet. I was kind of speechless. So the way he did it though, Joel, 3 aces at the end, I think up to that sort of maybe the second ace, I still thought Djokovic would win.
I mean, the Joao Fonseca hype train has now come into the station. I think with this result, he's shown that he is the real deal. I mean, you just have to look at his forehand and how he was just ripping that later and later as the match went on and progressed. That was, fun to see. The way he dealt with adversity as well from such a legend that he respected kind of growing up, on the other side of the court, coming back from, break points down, a breakdown in the 5th, 3-1 down. Again, it showed great mental aptitude. And I loved how he was just embracing the moment. There were a lot of Brazilian fans on the court. The more he got into the match, I think the more he used their energy to carry him home. It felt almost a little bit Carlos Alcaraz like. Carlos Alcaraz isn't here, but certainly I felt like I was watching a player who grew into the match, and similar to Carlos Alcaraz, maybe started in a little bit more of a scratchily fashion. I was even thinking this was going to be an absolute walk in the park after the first 10, 15 minutes. That felt like it was very easy, very comfortable for Djokovic. But for Fonseca, you just sort of, as I say, kind of flipped the script in that third set, and I think he used the crowd's energy to carry him home.
Because he could very easily have gone down in, in straight sets, but also in four sets. Djokovic had break points to go 5-3 up in that fourth set. And then in the fifth set, Djokovic went 3-1 up. So both times, Fonseca didn't get disheartened. He kind of just kept in there, fought back. And, overall, it was his ability to, in those key moments, raise his game, like going
and channel his inner
3 aces in a row. Yeah.
Channel his inner John Isner. I love that on the court afterwards. He said, I am John Isner. And again, it just shows that he is a personality. And I think it's been a tough, tough 6 months for him, tough opening to the season. I was looking back on some of his results, and I think back to kind of the golden swing where, he would have gone back home, lots of pressure and expectation, and he didn't really deliver. And I think for me, it was at that point where we were sort of thinking with Fonseca that actually there are players around him who were kind of overtaking and stealing his thunder, and rightly so. Players like Lerner Teen, for example, Hodar more recently. But actually, when it comes to the biggest moment, I think he saw this as a big opportunity. Roland Garros, all eyes on Djokovic. To some, arguably the favourite, given Jannik Sinner went out the day before, and he really relished the challenge, and that's what I loved to see from him, because he's a teenager. He's like 19 years old,
20 years younger than Djokovic.
Yeah, very, very inexperienced, but at the same time, just embracing this challenge. And I think maybe one of the reasons for that is he doesn't know how many times he's going to face Novak Djokovic again on a tennis court, even at a Grand Slam, a more rarer opportunity. So I think maybe that also played a factor into it, in that, yes, there are all these eyes on me, but I don't know how many times I'm going to play Novak Djokovic on the tour. He's 39 years old. He'll be 40 next season if he continues. And as a result, I think he wanted to kind of show all of his talents on the court.
Yeah, it's like if it was a video game, it's like playing the boss, isn't it? It's like the hardest, moment and match of your life. But I mean, I do kind of feel that if he was playing Djokovic, say 5 years ago, Djokovic would have got the win. I do think Djokovic was clearly struggling pretty physically. You could tell there was a 20-year age gap. And I do feel that was a big influence in Djokovic not able to cross the finish line. I'm not trying to take anything away from Fonseca, not saying he didn't deserve it, but I do think it's a bit of both, Djokovic losing it and Fonseca hanging in there and showing us what he can do, because I think I've been quite harsh on Fonseca, I think up to now, waiting for him to kind of prove to me what is all this hype about. And yeah, I think I'm kind of converted today, actually.
Yeah, because I admit you have been I think
cynic,
a cynic, and I think as much as I think a lot of people would have felt like he needed this moment. I think he probably would have felt that as well. Like he needed a big moment that he can hang his racket on to be like, look, guys, I can do this. I can deliver. And just the way I think he delivered it, it gives me more confidence, I think, that he can be up there and he can be in the conversation with the likes of Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. Perhaps it's taken a little bit more time than people were expecting, but I think that's just the nature of today and how expectations instantly are put upon players, and they're just expected to do things that legends have taken their careers to do. And I think it was a great performance from him. I was going to ask though, were you surprised with Djokovic in terms of like we saw him like I think vomiting into a bin at one point late on in the match. It did go very, very long, but were you surprised that he wasn't able to go the distance? I mean, this is something that Djokovic is famous for in terms of his body, and it almost felt like a role reversal on the tennis court.
Yeah, I think it's kind of consistent with what he's been saying, I think, since maybe the start of last year. Like, it's just the physicality that's the thing that he's noticing the difference against the younger players. And, Australia aside, in that semi-final with Sinner, where he was able to get the win, but then in the final, he was a bit flat. It was a bit tired. It's just he's not able to sustain it. And kind of, even if he'd got through this match, I would have been curious to see how, with more tough battles maybe to come, or I don't know, this probably would have been his toughest one perhaps until maybe meeting the likes of Zverev or something. I think, that's why I sort of said, 5 years ago, I think he would have got the win without too much of the drama that we saw. But I do think it played a big issue. And I think that's the one thing that is stopping him from getting his 25, because, Alcaraz and Sinner wouldn't have stopped him this tournament after Sinner went out yesterday. And maybe that was on his mind a bit. He thought, I've got a really big opportunity, but then it almost adds that extra pressure because you think I've got to take this moment. And perhaps that was a bit of a mental factor as well. In this match, his first match that he's played since Sinner went out, knowing what an opportunity, if he could make it through the rest of the draw, it would have been. I mean, he's got Wimbledon next, so you never know if things align sort of similar again. Maybe Sinner falls early. Obviously, Alcaraz isn't there. Maybe he gets quicker matches and doesn't have this kind of tussle early on. Maybe Djokovic can maintain his fitness enough. Maybe it won't be so brutally hot. The grass is probably where he excels more than on the courts of Roland Garros. He's won Wimbledon countless number of times. Maybe that's where he could do it. Is all hope lost, Joel? Do you think he's still got that to cling to for Wimbledon coming up?
I still think he has a shot at Grand Slam 25. I certainly do think that this was the easiest opportunity for him in normal circumstances. The fact that Sinner and Alcaraz were out, but I think there are kind of mitigating factors, and I think with Wimbledon, given his record there, and given Alcaraz is not going to be there, and there's a little bit more uncertainty around Sinner, I think he's still got a chance. I think the tennis is still good. And I think, Wimbledon, it's just not going to be as hot, or I hope it's not going to be as hot as it is in Paris. And I think he still has the ability to kind of come through. But it certainly shows, I think, for me, that in week one, he needs to kind of bring his A game. And, maybe he can't afford to drop sets as much as he has been doing earlier on in Grand Slams. Like he did in this tournament. So I still think there's a chance. But I think those opportunities with each slam progressing, the chance I think is becoming slimmer. And, perhaps Wimbledon is, the last real chance it could happen. I mean, the fact that he's not defended his semi-final points from last year, his ranking is going to go down, and seeding also might become a factor, but we will have to wait and see how the draw falls. It might not even matter. I mean, given what's happened here, we just don't know, but I certainly think he's still got a shot.
And he was asked about whether he would be seen at Roland Garros next year after the match, and he just said, I don't know. So fair enough. We don't know if this might be his season that he calls it a day, or if he got 25 he might instantly retire. I mean, I don't know, but
it would be if this were to be his last match in Paris, I think it would be a very fitting end. I mean, this is very much it's been a cross-generational battle, and it could be a match we look back on as potentially a passing of the torch,
Changing of the
a
guard.
changing of the guard. Exactly. We will have to wait and see how Fonseca develops. And I'm just hoping that he can back up this victory, or back up the tennis he played, and consistently deliver that, because we haven't seen this level of tennis enough from him over the season to validate the hype, I would say. So, and we all know how hard it is to back up big wins like this. So, I think for me, yes, the Fonseca hype train is real, but he needs to consistently deliver, I think. And he's already had 2 5-set matches here. I think what would be maybe even more impressive is if he can go into his next match, whether that's against Ruud or Paul, who are also in a 5th set at the moment, and get that done in a clinical fashion. I will be, dare I say, maybe more impressed by something like that than taking out a Djokovic who has been, who's shown signs of aging and, physicality kind of deserting him when he needs it most.
Yeah, we've seen players have like a flash in the pan, big win at a slam before, but it's the ones that can back it up and go deep after that moment that are the ones that will become, consistently great players. So I'm very intrigued to see how he'll get on. At the moment, like you said, Paul and Ruud are, I think, 5-all in the
he'll
fifth
be loving.
set,
He'll be loving this though.
Yeah, so they'll be just as knackered maybe. And we'll have to see with Fonseca. The train is not sort of speeding off. It's perhaps going to have a few bumps in the train line first. But it's just been a crazy Grand Slam, hasn't it, Joe? I mean, Alcaraz wasn't even here. Sinner's out in round 2. Djokovic has come back, from a comeback from Fonseca. We've got a lucky loser, Jesper de Jong, reached the 4th round today, which does not happen very often. I think it's only the 3rd person to have done that at Roland Garros in the Open era. The heat has been a factor. A load of seeds out. We've got the young guns, Hodar and Landaluce, that they're still going. Guame, the new French hope, maybe he's into the 3rd round. I mean, even Pablo Carreno Busta having a bit of a renaissance. We're going to have, though, a brand new Grand Slam champion now that Djokovic is out. Do you think it's going to be someone that's reached a final before? So I'm thinking Ruud, Zverev, Berrettini, or do you think we're going to have 2
I was wondering if you were going to say
first-timers?
Berrettini there for a second. I mean, that is also an incredible story. I would just say I think this has been one of the most refreshing men's Grand Slam draws. And it just shows, I think, without kind of the establishment and the foundations at the top, I think it just shows how quickly everything can crumble. And I think show actually just how vulnerable the rest of the top 10 are. Before going into this tournament, I was kind of thinking, well, yeah, we have seen it on the tour, but I still think it's going to be different when it comes to best of 5. But actually, it's not really been the case. And to me, it's interesting that, the heat has been a factor, but the younger guys have been, who are earlier on in their careers, I think are making the most of it. As you mentioned, Joao Fonseca, Mensik coming through against Dumador. I don't understand how he was able to do that. I mean, it looked like he was running on
lost
fumes.
The first set to love, didn't he?
Lost the first set to love. Dumador had a 5-0 head-to-head as well against Mensik. Just an incredible run there. You've got obviously teens through Kwame, just so many great stories. So yeah, it's been very refreshing, but I also think it's just shown how open I think the men's draw is when the foundations at the top are kind of creaking a little bit. To think Alexander Zverev is now the establishment or the foundation, really, only real kind of player with big Grand Slam pedigree that will feel like he's the favorite. I mean, just on that, with this victory over Djokovic, would you say Joao Fonseca is a favorite? I mean, after Sinner went out, the chat was with the bookies that Zverev was favorite, followed by Hodar.
Yeah, which is wild when you think about it. Although
but why not? Is
Fonseca,
Fonseca,
have never heard of.
is Fonseca now the favourite for the French Open?
I would still go with someone like Zverev in the sense of getting. I think Zverev is more likely to reach the final, but I still have question marks over Zverev in a Grand Slam final and choking and all of that. But you know, he does have the most experience at the latter stages. Obviously, Ruud has made a couple of finals, so him as well. So I kind of still feel like one of them would reach the final. It's just the other side, I suppose, is perhaps more unique. I really don't know who is going to come through from that top half. France's TFO is there as a seed, but you know, we've got Moise Kouame, the young Frenchman. I mean, I think that would be going. So we have got Felix Auger-Aliassime. I mean, Martin Landaluce. How great would it be if he just made I mean, it is very exciting. And I think it's a complete contrast to last year where we had obviously that epic final between Sinner and Alcaraz. We're going to have something completely different this year, which is refreshing.
Bonkers. It's going to be bonkers. I guess
I don't know about the TV or the TV channels and the organisers might be like, oh, where's our star names? You know, if we're getting like a Commissana, I don't know, Mensic final, you know, not household names, but we will see. Let's see what happens. Lots to play for. But Joel, we do have something else that came out, which in less salubrious news, shall we say, and that was I don't know if you recall Adolfo Vallejo, who lost to Kouame, the young Frenchman, yesterday in a last set tiebreak. He has been, he's going to be fined, we think, potentially quite a large amount of money, potentially up to $100,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct because he came out with some quite sexist comments after his loss, basically saying that these kinds of matches, I don't know what he meant exactly by these kinds of matches, maybe playing a local, you know, favorite or something like Kouame. These kinds of matches should be officiated by a man. It's very difficult for a woman to do it. It has to be a man because the crowd is very tough and you need a lot of strength to go against them. So that is the actual comment from Vallejo. And quite rightly, obviously, that's not acceptable. And the French Open organisers have condemned that and they are I think going to be fining him, which for him, you know, he's 71 in the world. It's a rather a large amount of money to lose for those wild comments. But yeah, it's not a good look when you've got players saying that so publicly. And, you know, I don't know how different a male umpire would have done anything on that day. I think what he said is an absolute load of you know what. So there we go.
I'm very surprised he came out with this. I'm thinking, has he not had media training? Even if you think this, don't say this.
Say it.
And I think today he's come out to try and defend himself with a kind of vague, lost in translation comment, but the French Tennis Federation having absolutely none of it. And I actually applaud them, for calling this out and, coming down with him with a fine. I mean, they've already said it's going to be a significant fine. We don't know how much it's going to be yet, but I do hope they kind of throw the book at him because these comments just have no place in tennis in this day and age. And I thought the umpire during their match did really well, actually. Very tough match. It was nearly 5 hours in front of a French crowd. It was always going to be a tough assignment, but I thought she handled it expertly. So yeah, I'm glad that the French Tennis Federation is stepping in. I just want to say though, it's kind of funny in the sense that yes, the French Tennis Federation are coming to the aid of a female umpire, but they haven't always necessarily kind of shone themselves in glory, given night session matches, for example. Not really. It's all kind of male matches there. A lot of the female matches get put first on, like on Philippe Chatrier. I'm glad they've kind of called this out.
Yeah, it's somewhat ironic, isn't it? I think that's a good point, that maybe they're not the most neutral with the way they act on gender and players, like you said. But Let's take a quick break now, but we'll be back in the second half to discuss all the women's action from day 6 at Roland Garros, including Iga Swiatek winning the Battle of the Poles. And we'll also be talking about comments by Katie Boulter leading calls for the on-court sponsorship boards to be removed. And we'll be looking also ahead to day 7, where Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka are in action. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And it's time now to look back on the women's action from day 6 at Roland Garros. But before we do that, actually, we wanted to chat through these awful, there's two things: the on-court advertising boards at the back of the court and the tarpaulins, because there's been a number of incidents this tournament which has resulted in, some quite significant injuries. So Alexander Blocks, for example, over on the tarpaulin front. But also today we saw Zeynep Sonmez retiring from her doubles match because she fell into one of the on-court advertising boards at the back, and she had a bruised knee and needed 2 stitches. Katie Boulter yesterday obviously had an incident with a similar board, and fortunately, didn't have to pull out of her match as a result. But unnecessary hazard, Katie Boulter has said, and that we shouldn't have to wait, Sonmez said, until someone's seriously injured before they are removed. What do you make of this, Joel? I think we've seen the odd instance of this before, but it does seem like we've had quite a number in the space of a few days. And it's, do you think the tournament are going to do anything about it, or just, factor this in for next year in the sort of planning of the court architecture, perhaps?
Well, they have said this evening that adjustments are currently being made to the area around the playing surface. Personally, I think it's too little, too late. This really should have been addressed before the tournament. I think one of the things, having been to Roland Garros, is a lot of these outside courts, particularly, they're quite small dimensions, and there's lots of things still present on these courts, lots of obstacles. You've got the tarpaulin, you've got the boards, you've got the line judges, and it kind of creates this environment where, as well as a tennis match and playing against your opponent, you have to think about other things. I've heard other players talk about the fact that sometimes that even if they can reach a ball, they may not necessarily go for it because it's going to put them into a dangerous area. And I think if players are of that mindset, then there's something wrong with the tennis court. They should be allowed to kind of go for whatever they want to on the court, whatever they want to throw themselves towards, and not think about the fact that maybe they're going to get seriously injured. So I think that I don't think this is a great look, and we'll have to see what adjustments can be made. But honestly, like, the tarpaulin, I think, is the one that kind of gets to me the most. It looks very, you can see how easily that's a trip hazard. So yeah, I guess I think they need to kind of modernize these courts. And I think one of the challenges that they have is, they're the only Grand Slam that doesn't have electronic line calling. And one of the benefits, I think, of electronic line calling is player safety, because it's basically just removed everything from the tennis court. But because Roland Garros does not have electronic line calling in place, it still has kind of these old school aspects, to the game on the tennis court, particularly with the line judges. I mean, the line judges, I feel like they would always kind of be behind those boards as well. But it's just too many obstacles, I think, on the court at the moment. And yeah, we're getting into these situations that are not good for player safety, but it's also not good for the tournament either, because for Alexander Blocks, I mean, earlier on this week, he was talking about he might be potentially suing the French Tennis Federation over the I think the tarpaulin that he hurt his ankle on.
Well, that's one thing that would make them change if they had a big legal bill to pay. But I mean, I think they just need to do more thorough risk assessments, because surely, when you're designing that, and surely all it takes is someone to test it out by running for, a pretend ball or something. But, they've got these little advertising boards. Yeah, fair enough. You've got to deal with your sponsors and showcase them, but can't that be stuck on the back the back bit? Does it have to jut out? I mean, yeah, it's just kind of in hindsight, I think, quite simple tweaks that can be made, but we'll have to hope that they do make them. I mean, there was something surfacing on the internet as well after during Hodar's match, there was it looked like Hodar had possibly sort of moved a ball girl out the way, but it could be that she'd slipped on the tarpaulin, which seems to be happening quite a lot.
Kim, I have forensically viewed the video, and I think to Hodar's credit, I don't think nothing happened. I think if you look at the ball girl's feet, she trips over the tarpaulin, so it's not just a conspiracy.
They're saying he's hit this ball.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's a bit of an odd non-story, but certainly I think the other thing to add in is the clay surface as well. Just naturally means the balls bounce up there, with lots of spin on. They go quite far from the from the baseline. So I think they have to do as much as possible to make it as safe, regardless of how far back you think it is on the court, because players want to go wherever they want.
I mean, Rafa normally return serve like that far back, if he was here. But yeah, they are trying to make some adjustments, I think, during the tournament. So let's hope that they do. But let's have a look at the women's action today. To be honest, quite standard straight sets across the board really today. We had Swiatek winning over your favourite Magdalene. That was quite, run-of-the-mill 6-4, 6-4 there. She's going to face Marta Kostic, actually, who came through against Golubic. So that's going to be quite a cracker, I think. Kostic obviously being in great form on the clay. And interestingly enough, Swiatek has said that she's requested to play first match for all her rounds. She wants that opening slot.
What, including the final?
Yeah, the one and only slot. So we'll have to see if they put her on at her requested slot for Sunday. But we also had Andreeva come through against Buskova, Svitolina through against Korpatch, Bencic is through. We did have Mukova losing though to Jill Teichmann, who I thought, blast from the past. I thought, gosh, we haven't heard much of her.
She's still only 28 years old. She's still got a lot of tennis left in her. But I
thought she was like mid-30s or something.
But yeah, I mean, just on Swiatek and Andreeva, I thought they looked very, very good today, particularly on the serve front. I thought Swiatek, I mean, the final game of the match just showed, I think she's in a real groove at the moment. I think it's what makes her matchup with Marta Kostic in the next round so appealing. I mean, Kostic's on a 15-match winning streak. Swiatek's not really been tested of yet, and I think the schedule has helped her kind of go about her business in a very under-the-radar fashion for a four-time champion. So I think Kostic will pose the first real test for her, and I can't see that being put first on. In fact, I don't really want to see that be first on, because I think it's going to be one of the matches of the day when it does kind of
deserves more of a crowd.
It does, exactly. So it will be interesting to see. I think this is going to be the first proper test for Swiatek, and it's going to be if she wants to be a champion again, it starts here really. I think with Kostic. So yeah, we shall see. But I think, it'll be certainly a lot different environment she'll be working in. And, we don't know, we've seen more vulnerabilities from Swiatek, recently with, with the crowd, being upset with her play. So yeah, we'll just have to see how that goes. But I'd still back Swiatek. She's got the history, I think, with the court. Yes, Kostic has the form, but I think I'd slightly favour Swiatek still. Yeah. I mean, one player they could put on first is Sorana Cristea, because she's been racing through the draw. She's only dropped 7 games in her first 3 rounds, and that was largely helped by the double bagel she inflicted on Solana Sierra today. 56 minutes they were out on court, and she's actually the oldest player
in the Open era to get a double bagel win in a Grand Slam main draw.
I cannot make sense of this result because Sierra beat Raducanu love and 6 in the first round. Then she defeated Paolini, the 13th seed, in 3 sets. So it just shows, I think, how good of form Cristea is.
Yeah.
And again, hammers home that point. Why is this her final season
retiring?
On the tour? Why is she retiring?
I mean, she's got Zhizhu Wang next as well. So you'd expect in this form that she'd come through her. And she did reach the quarterfinals in 2009 here. She reached the 4th round in 2021. Could she go arguably, further? She would maybe have Andreeva quarterfinal, I think. But I'd love to see it. I mean, and I'd love to see her maybe not retire because she's such a fantastic player when she's in form like this. And I was not expecting to see a double bagel today, but she's just, I guess it's the consistency throughout her career. This is only the 6th time she's actually made it into the second week of a slam. So
I'm not even convinced. I'm not even convinced if Rybakina had got this far, because that's the part of the draw Cristea was in.
She would have faced her.
Yeah, they would have faced each other in round 4. But I'm actually not convinced Rybakina would have come through that anyway, because Cristea is just playing great ball. And it'd be very fascinating to see if that matchup does happen with Andreeva in the quarterfinals. Certainly one to watch. I'm kind of like, what's the point where Cristea readdresses her decisions with retirement? Is it a quarterfinal?
Possibly. I mean,
semi-final?
I feel because this is like her last
champion
time, she's probably just playing with all that freedom. Like, I'm just going to make the most of it. I don't have that pressure. But at what point? Because as soon as she says I'm not retiring anymore, she'll probably start going downhill. So what do you do? But I mean, one player, Joel, just to bring everyone up to date as we're recording this, Casper Ruud has made it through.
Oh wow.
Yes, he has come back from 2 sets down. Yet another player to come back.
He is really earning his time off for the grass court season, isn't he? I mean, I'm actually very. He's probably the player I've been most impressed with in terms of playing very deep, playing in the heat, and coming through. Because he's a player who I don't think, if you ask him to play in the heat, I don't necessarily think he would say that brings out his best game, but you've got to respect the hours he's put on court in the last couple of rounds to fight through.
The resilience. Yeah, no, I'm pleased for him. I know Chris is hoping that he can go all the way here. And maybe he's certainly putting the time in on court. So we'll have to wait and see.
I'm also pleased we're not going to see Tommy Paul's shocking top again at the French Open.
And his shoes. Very bright.
I don't know if listeners agree with me there. I know we've got quite a few American listeners, but I genuinely have been blinded by his magenta, pink, purple number he had against Ruud. I'm just thankful, let's say, that Wimbledon there's an all whites policy.
Yeah, because I like that shade of pink. I think Cristea was wearing the pink dress version, and I think in the daytime in the sun it's all right, but I think when it gets later on and I wasn't quite keen on like the black cap with the on Tommy Paul, but I have to say I really really thought Djokovic's outfit was amazing this tournament. I love the colors, but I think it's the same color combo as the Ball Kids, because I think they're in Lacoste as well. So maybe not the greatest to sort of dress in similar pattern as the Ball Kids, but anyway, I just love the colors. Let's have a look who's on court tomorrow, day 7, because we do have Caboli and Teen opening up on Chatrier, so they have gone for a men's opener. Then we've got Diane Parry, obviously the local home favourite, against Anisimova, followed by Coco Gauff and Otapova. The 9th session is Felix Auger-Aliassime and Brandon Nakashima. So
Kim, it's slim pickings. It is slim pickings without
I think
Jannik
that would be
Sinner.
quite nice. But yes, I know this would have been Sinner's day, wouldn't it? So, but then Suzanne Longlong, we've got Jovic Osaka to start. That'll be good. Then Sabalenka Kazatkina. Then we've got Kouame, local, obviously young Frenchman, against Tabilo. So can Kouame go another round further? And then Faria and Tiafoe to finish up. And then Simone Mathieu, we've got Sakari, Trelinsky, Berrettini, Comersana, and Mboko Keys.
I'm just curious,
Tasty
Kim,
ones there.
how the Cerundolo brothers going to be getting on. I mean, Juan Manuel Cerundolo's present, let's say, or prize for defeating Jannik Sinner, he's been booted out onto court 7.
Court 7, I
just
know.
one of 2 singles matches out there.
And his brother's on court 14.
And his brother's on court 14. So back to the day job. Quite surprised, actually, maybe
the day
Kwame.
Job.
Yeah, quite surprised.
Beating
maybe
Sinner's not the day job.
That Kwame, that match didn't get the night session, maybe.
Well, I was thinking that, but then do they want to keep Kwame away from that sort of pressure of, oh, I've got a dedicated session just for me? Because that can be quite pressurizing, I think. So, and they've it's 2 seeded players with FAA, Nakashima, and Kwame.
I mean, where are you looking? Where would be your match of the day?
Oh, I think Jovic Osaka would be interesting to open. I think I would start there, and then I'd probably dart around between the likes of Sabalenka, maybe Anissa, maybe a bit Berrettini. I Martin Landaluce against Juan Manuel Cerundolo. I'd be quite keen to watch a bit of that. And then, FAA in the evening. I think, and bit of cool. I'm basically everywhere, Joel. If I was there, I'd be dancing around.
You're everywhere.
But I'll be on multi-view on the telly instead.
You're everywhere. Apart from the match I would be at, and I think that's Mboko versus Madison Keys.
Yeah.
It's a blockbuster matchup, I think, in Simone Mathieu. So we'll have to see how. I'm going to be watching that, but we're going to end up. Oh, sorry, and Gauff Potapova. Sorry, I was hyping Gauff Potapova the other day.
Spoilt for choice.
But yeah, certainly I'm looking maybe more at the women's matches tomorrow. But we're going to wrap up our Roland Garros Day 6 catch-up here at Tennis Weekly HQ. We hope you've enjoyed the ride with us. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of action from Paris, where we are producing daily episodes across the fortnight. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favourite podcasting platforms out there. And if you love what you're hearing, be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as well as hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube.
And you can stay connected with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X. At Tennis Weekly Pod is our handle. And you can also get in touch with us, not just on all those social channels, but via email, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or visit our website at tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we'll be back on Saturday for our Roland Garros Day 7 catch-up. But until then, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.